Next up, from Columbia, South Carolina, is Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator Cruz, you said last night your campaign was defying expectations in South Carolina. But wasn't the expectation that you should have done better in South Carolina, given the large share of conservatives in the state and the very large share of those who self-identify as evangelical Christians?
You know, John, if you look at the first three primaries, we started in Iowa, where all of the media said we didn't have a chance, we couldn't win. We won an overwhelming victory in Iowa with a big, big margin. We went on to New Hampshire. All the media said a conservative could not compete in a moderate New England state. We won a very strong third-place finish in New Hampshire. And then we went to South Carolina, where a week ago Donald Trump had a 20-point dominating lead. And we ended up closing that gap tremendously and finishing with effectively tied for second place. And that combination, what that's done to the race, is at this point we've seen the field narrow dramatically, and there is only one strong conservative who has a path to winning. And that is having the effect of unifying conservatives nationally and teeing us up for Nevada and especially for Super Tuesday coming up in 9 days. And that was always our plan. Do well in the first three states and then compete and have a very strong night in Super Tuesday. I think we're ideally positioned to do exactly that.
You've made the case that you're the only candidate who can unite the diverse parts of the conservative coalition. But when you look inside the exit polls, you do very well with those who identify as strongly conservative, but you have trouble in the other areas. How are you going to solve that problem?
Well, you know, one of the very encouraging things we saw last night in the exit polls is that we won young people. We were in first place among young people in South Carolina. It's interesting because we also won young people in Iowa, and we took second among young people in New Hampshire. If you can stitch together that kind of coalition with young people, bringing together conservatives and evangelicals, and I'll tell you, in Iowa, we also won Reagan Democrats, working class voters. And as you know, John, historically, in order to have a chance to win the nomination, you have to win one of the first three states. There are only two people that have done that, Donald Trump and me. And one of the things we're seeing is listen, across the country, there are a lot of Republicans who think Donald Trump is not the right guy to go head-to-head with Hillary Clinton, that we probably lose that match. About 70% of Republicans believe that. We're seeing people come together behind our campaign because we are the only campaign that has beaten Donald Trump and that can beat Donald Trump. You can't beat Donald from the left. You can't beat Donald with a candidate who has supported amnesty. Donald wins that head-to-head. Head-to-head with me, we beat Donald Trump by 16 points. And so what we're seeing, John, it's incredible. People all over the country are going to tedcruz.org. We've got over 980,000 contributions at tedcruz.org because we want a strong conservative. We want someone who can beat Hillary, and I beat Hillary, and Donald, sadly, the polling shows doesn't.
Let me ask you a question about evangelical voters in South Carolina. Their exit polls showed that they went for Donald Trump over you. Do you think that he questioned your Christianity during the course of the South Carolina campaign?
Oh, listen, there's no doubt that both Donald and Marco got very personal, got very nasty. And both of them, when you point to their records, they follow the same pattern. They scream, liar, liar, liar. They impugn your integrity. They attack your character. And as you know, from the very beginning of this campaign, nearly a year now, I have consistently refused to respond in kind. I'm not going to impugn anyone's integrity. I'm not going to attack their character. And in fact, I will happily praise both Donald Trump and Marco Rubio as men who I admire, as people who I'm not going to go personal with them, but I do think we should be focused on substance and record. If you want a candidate who opposes amnesty, who opposes citizenship for the 12 million people here illegally, I'm the only candidate in the race who opposes that. If you want a candidate who's led the fight against Obamacare, who will lift the burdens on small businesses and bring back jobs, I'm the only candidate in the race with that proven record. If you want a candidate to defend life and marriage and religious liberty and the Second Amendment and to appoint strong constitutionalists to the court, I'm the only candidate with that record. That's why conservatives are uniting behind our campaign. And if they want to continue with the attacks, that's their prerogative. We're going to stay focused on the substance because I think that's what the voters want. I think that's what they deserve.
Let me ask you about the substance of immigration and building a wall. Both you and Donald Trump want the same thing, but he's had a lot of experience in the business world executing, getting things done as a businessman. What would you say to a voter who says, okay, you may share the same goals with Donald Trump on this, but you lack that experience of having executed the way he has in the private sector?
Well, listen, I have joked more than once on the campaign trail that I'm going to build a wall, and I have somebody in mind to build it. There's no doubt that if you wanted a building contractor, Donald would be certainly a strong contender for that. But the question we have here is, who is a leader on this issue? You know, back in 2013, when we were having the epic battle on amnesty, when Marco Rubio joined up with Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer and Harry Reid to push amnesty, I led the fight against it, standing shoulder to shoulder with Jeff Sessions and Steve King and millions of Americans. And Donald Trump was nowhere to be found. In fact, he was tweeting support for amnesty just a couple of years ago. And even now, if you ask Donald, he wants to give citizenship to the 12 million people here illegally. He wants to deport them, but then let them come right back in with citizenship. Listen, if you're a hardworking steel worker or truck driver, that drives down your wages, that takes away your jobs. I think we need to be fighting for the working men and women of this country, not the moneyed New York interests.
Senator Cruz, we're going to have to leave it there. We appreciate you being with us. We'll be back in a minute.